So back in 2016, my wife and I moved from Iowa to Denver, Colorado, and we lived there up until 2021. But then 2021, we made the bold decision to actually move away from Denver to Dallas, Texas. Now fast forward 4 years later and we are back in the Denver, Colorado metro. In this video, I'm going to give you a first-hand look at, first of all, why we moved away from Denver in the first place, and second of all, why we ended up moving our family back. Now, I'm going to share our story in the hopes that maybe you relate to some of these things, and maybe it makes it even more clear that, hey, maybe you should not move to Denver, Colorado, or maybe it does make sense. Hey, my name is Michael Caraway. I'm a realtor here in the Denver area, and let's get to it. So before we jump into, why we actually moved away from Denver and why we find ourselves actually living in Denver now again, I think it's important to give just a little bit of context so you know why some of these decisions were made, and hopefully you can relate to some of those. So, rewinding back to 2016, when we moved from Iowa to Denver, we were moving out as a young couple. We weren't married yet. We didn't have kids. All we had was our jobs, each other, and a dog. And in that stage of our life, Denver was amazing. Like, we didn't have any responsibilities, so if we weren't working, we went and got into the outdoors. We would go for long hikes, we would go out to paddleboard, we'd go just go out and about into the town. It was just more of a free lifestyle, and we took advantage of everything that Denver had to offer. So now fast forward to 2020, we were obviously in the middle of COVID, so we were trapped at home. Denver was very, very strict about all of the COVID policies, the quarantining, all the shutdowns, all that kind of stuff. It was very, very strict. So we were kind of trapped at home, isolated. At that time, we had already been married for a few years, and we had found out that we were pregnant with our first daughter. And so that was somewhat of the context of what was going on when we made that decision to move from Colorado down to Texas. Kind of what initially started the conversation about possibly moving away from Colorado was just this idea of, hey, like, we're about to have our first kid. This is a very expensive state compared to what we're used to growing up in Iowa. Like, maybe we should consider looking at something a little bit less expensive. One of the things that we've always talked about doing is trying to figure out how we could let my wife be able to stay home with our kids, and me be the sole income provider for our family. We just realistically couldn't figure out how to make that work at that time in our lives. And so we started trying to just figure out, hey, is it a possibility to, maybe move somewhere else, cut our cost of living, and be able to let my wife stay home with our daughter, who was then born in 2021. And just for some context, like, when we were looking at homes in Dallas, Texas, that we were able to find some homes that were literally about half the cost of what we were able to afford in Colorado. So couple of that with the fact that Texas had no state income tax, like, it just seemed like a really good idea for us to possibly consider moving there. The one thing that we were really just kind of struggling with, and which was kind of keeping us in Denver, was the fact that we love to be in the outdoors, and we love the outdoor lifestyle and the active lifestyle that you find in the Denver area. And we were really going to miss that if we were going to move away. And what we kind of landed at, after we had our daughter in 2021, we just got immersed, and you just kind of can't really see past that infant stage. And at the time, we were just wondering, like, how the heck are we going to actually take advantage of all the outdoor lifestyle that Denver has to offer with a newborn baby, even a 1-year-old or 2-year-old. Like, we just couldn't see that happening. And so we just got to the point where we realized that maybe we wouldn't be able to take advantage of the outdoor lifestyle that Denver offered anyways. And so it made it a little bit easier to consider moving away at that point. One of the other frustrations with Denver at the time, and just based on where we lived, was that the suburbs were just really sleepy for the most part. Like, we had found ourselves, we had bought our first home way on the north side of Denver, all the way up in Erie, Colorado. And it was a beautiful neighborhood, Collier's Hill. It still is an absolutely amazing neighborhood, and I highly recommend it. However, our issue with it was that it is a little bit out there. You don't have a ton of restaurants and shopping and all that kind of stuff around you. You really are having to get down south closer to Denver to start getting access to that. And so, we had known that Texas, we had some family in Texas in the Dallas area, and we had visited several times. And the suburbs are very different in Dallas compared to at least the north part of Denver. In Dallas, like, you really you aren't missing out on anything being in the suburbs. There's so many shops, so many different restaurants, so many great entertainment options, so many different like town centers and like these little urban pockets within the suburbs, that it just felt like you weren't really missing out being out in the suburbs compared to a place like Erie, where it is just a little bit more out there and you're away from all of the entertainment options that Denver had to offer. And we knew that we could get closer to pockets like that in Denver. It just required a little bit bigger budget, or for us to sacrifice on the kind of house or neighborhood that we wanted to be in, and ultimately just wasn't that worth that sacrifice at that point in our lives. And the other thing that was just really attractive to us at that point in our lives is that we assumed that we'd be able to be outside year round in Texas compared to Denver. Denver, obviously you have a winter that's you're going to have a little bit more cold weather and that kind of thing. And we just couldn't really see ourselves getting outside with young kids during the winter, versus in a place like Dallas, Texas, where you have pretty mild temperatures for the most part throughout the year, except for summer, which when we actually went and lived there and experienced it, summer was pretty much the winter in Texas, where nobody would go outside. You kind of just stayed in your house. So we weren't necessarily right on that assumption in the first place, but that was something that was going through our minds at that point, and why it made it easier to move away from Denver first. And so with all that, we ultimately decided that it was worth us making the move down to Dallas, Texas. And so we sold our house in Erie, packed up a U-Haul, and moved down, our family of 3 at the time, down to the Dallas, Texas suburbs. And Dallas was an absolutely amazing city, and we have no regrets in making that move down there. It was definitely a necessary move for us at that time. And it's one of those things where I think if we hadn't done it, we'd always wondered if it would have been the best place for us. But being down there for 4 years, it became pretty clear, especially as we were getting into year 3 and 4, that there just wasn't really a long term for us in Dallas. And there's several reasons for that. And I think that really, when it boils down to it, it was more about what we were missing about Colorado than it was an issue with Texas itself. And so what prompted the discussion about possibly moving back to Denver was that we had a second kid. So we had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old at this point, and we just found out that we're going to have a third. And so we just kind of realized, 3 kids was always in the back of our mind of, what we would end up with. And I don't know if we'll end up with more or not, but that's kind of just what has been in our hearts from day one. And so it just kind of made it real of like, hey, is Dallas truly where we want to settle down and plant roots and raise our family? Because ultimately we wanted to end up in a spot, plant those roots, and have that solid foundation for our kids moving forward. And so we started having those discussions of, is Dallas long term, or do we need to be looking somewhere else? And ultimately, we just kept on bringing up some things that we just truly missed about Denver. And here's what some of those things were. So obviously, the first thing that came to mind was just the outdoor activities that we felt like we were going to miss out on with our family if we did not make the move back to Denver. Dallas, again, is a great city, but there's literally like zero outdoor recreation in that town. And same with the state of Texas. Like, there's pockets here and there, but you got to drive a long ways from Dallas to be able to get to that. And so, we wanted to have that active lifestyle. We wanted to be able to go out and hike. We wanted to be able to, take the weekend and go on a snowboarding trip, or, go camping for the weekend. And we love that kind of thing. And we just couldn't see ourselves being able to do that in Texas. And so that made it very, very easy to say like, hey, Texas is probably not going to be a great fit for us long term. Along the same thread, we were just truly missing, like, deep within our soul, like, the natural beauty around us. And it's something we kind of took for granted when we first lived in Colorado. It was just kind of, again, different stage of life. Didn't appreciate the small things as much. But now, we're just in this place where we just missed having that beauty around us, the mountains and the bluffs and the beautiful trees, the fall foliage, all these beautiful things that Colorado has to offer. Texas just did not have. Texas is flat. You don't have that pretty of trees. You don't have there's a few lakes, but the lakes aren't that pretty. There's not a lot of beauty in Texas. And so we really miss that about Colorado. One of the things that we really grew to appreciate even more, having been away from Colorado, is the people. Now in Dallas, you have a lot of great people, don't get me wrong. We made a lot of great friends, and there's a lot of great, really good people there. But there is this culture of bouginess and kind of the keeping up with the Joneses and all of that kind of stuff in Texas, in Dallas specifically. And that just wasn't for us. And now granted, that kind of thing does exist in Colorado, but from our experience, we have absolutely been able to find way more laid back people here in Colorado compared to when we were living in Texas. And so we really miss that kind of vibe. You're not seeing, people get really dolled up just to go out to a coffee shop, or really dolled up just to go to church. It's, people are just laid back, kind of come as you are, versus in Dallas, if you're going out somewhere, you're really dressing up, you're trying to look sharp. And so, again, small little thing, but it's just a little thing that we noticed about living in Denver versus Dallas. One thing that we really came to appreciate having been in Dallas was the weather that you got in Colorado. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, the fact that, we thought we would be able to enjoy outside in Dallas pretty much year round, and to a certain extent you could. But even though you didn't get a really harsh winter, you got a really harsh summer. So in those summer months, if you weren't out by a pool, you likely just weren't going outside. And so we really kind of missed that active lifestyle that we had in Colorado during the summer, because, to be honest, summer in Colorado is absolutely beautiful. Yes, it gets a little hot, but it's not brutal like you get in Dallas, Texas. Those are those core months that you want to be outside and being super active and going camping and all that kind of stuff. And we just missed that. And to be honest, we love the weather year round here in Colorado. Even though you get some snow and you get some cold weather during the winter, as long as the sun's out, pretty much any time year round, you can go outside and go for a walk and feel pretty comfortable. So we were super stoked to get back to Colorado weather. But if I were to have to wrap this up into the most important part about why we decided we wanted to move to Denver, Colorado, and this kind of encompasses some of the points that I've already made today, but this is kind of the overarching theme of where we are in our life and what's important to us, and why we ultimately decided to move back to the Denver, Colorado area. And that reason is that we just wanted a slower pace of life. We have gotten to this point where we're just trying to really soak up the little things with our kids. We're trying to make memories with them, and we're just trying to build that solid foundation for our family. And we just felt that Dallas was really high speed. It was really high speed. It's a big city. It's super congested, tons of traffic. You couldn't get away from the chaos, it seemed like. And so now that we are back in Denver, Colorado, even beforehand, we were hoping that it was just going to better set us up to be able to live that slower paced life. And having been here now for a while, we just feel like we've made the right decision. We have absolutely been able to slow down a little bit, been able to focus on the more important things. We've been able to get out into nature more and really start creating those memories with our family, which is super awesome and I'm super grateful for. So that's why we ended up moving from Dallas, Texas back to Denver, Colorado. And now that we've been here for a while, just a few more observations that maybe you'll appreciate that we've just noticed since being here and being back here in a different stage of life where, we were wanting that slower pace of life, and, we're wanting those family memories, and we have, about to be 3 kids. It's just a different stage of life now. So here's a few things that maybe would be helpful for you, just observations that we've had recently. We feel that this is probably the best place to raise a family. And the reason is, I mean, there's so many dang kids activities out there and different things to do with the family. You know, we've had literally an endless amount of things that we can go do, whether it's going to different play places for the kids, or going to different events or concerts, or you know, little things like that. Like there's so much going on here, so many different things you can do with little kids, that we've really enjoyed that part of it. I'll also say that it's just been super easy to make friends and meet new people since we've moved back, even compared to when we lived here before. Again, different stage of life. We had just had our kid, but it was during COVID, and so we didn't really get to experience what it was like to live with kids in Colorado. But since being back and having those little kids and being out and about in the community, like, we just have organically met a ton of really cool people since being here. You know, the last observation I would give you is just the fact that, you know, we feel like we found a really special place. There's a lot of great towns in Denver, and there are a lot of great suburbs and a lot of great neighborhoods in Denver proper. Like there's a ton of great places to live, but we felt like we found the perfect place for us specifically to live. And this is the first time in our lives where we've truly felt that. And we ended up calling Castle Rock home. And so Castle Rock is this beautiful combination of, you know, you still have plenty of amenities. You've got the outlets, you've got your grocery store, you've got your boutiques and things like that you can go to. You've got downtown Castle Rock, which has a ton of amazing local eateries, breweries, coffee shops, so many cool things. They've got like an amphitheater for concerts and things like that. Tons of trails throughout the community, so many different great master plan communities within Castle Rock. And what's really cool about Castle Rock specifically is it feels like you're in the mountains. Like there's bluffs all around you, there's great views from all of the homes, all of the restaurants that you're in, all of that kind of stuff, and we just feel like we found the perfect place for us. But just because that's a perfect place for us doesn't mean it's the perfect place for you. So if you want help trying to find that perfect place for you, then definitely reach out to me. Shoot me a text, give me a call, send me an email anytime. I'm here to help you find that perfect place to call home here in Denver. Until next time, I'll see you later.